The great assembly hall floated in the darkness of space, surrounded by stars that had witnessed 1,000 years of galactic peace. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 848 civilizations gathered to make a decision that would change everything. The air buzzed with tension as delegates whispered in languages that ranged from melodic songs to chemical signals. Daiho stood at the human platform, his hands clasped behind his back. His black uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes and armors worn by other species. Beside him, Jiwoo reviewed data on her tablet, her expression unreadable. They both knew what was coming. The votes had been counted before the session even began. At the center of the hall, Vexter rose from his seat. The Saurian leader's scales gleamed under the artificial lights, reflecting colors that showed his satisfaction. His species had controlled the council for 3 centuries, and he intended to keep it that way. Beside him, Loomis floated in her containment sphere, her energy form pulsing with what might have been agreement or indifference. No one could ever tell with the bright collective. "The council recognizes the motion," Vexter announced, his voice amplified across the chamber. "Earth and humanity stand accused of aggressive expansion, violation of peaceful contact protocols, and possession of technologies deemed dangerous to galactic stability. The evidence has been reviewed. The debates have concluded. We now vote on the proposed sanction: complete quarantine and expulsion from council space for 500 years. Daiho felt Jiwoo tense beside him, but he remained still. They had prepared for this moment for months. The accusations were lies, carefully constructed by council members who feared human innovation. Earth's rapid advancement from first contact to council membership in just 50 years had threatened the established order. Old powers wanted humanity removed before they could challenge the existing hierarchy. The voting began. Species after species registered their decision on the holographic displays. Green lights appeared next to each name, indicating approval of the banishment. The Mantid Collective voted yes. The Aquarian Federation voted yes. The Silicon Concordat voted yes. On and on it went, an avalanche of green that buried any hope of appeal. Daiho watched without expression. He had known this would happen. Intelligence reports had confirmed the conspiracy weeks ago. 3 senior council members had secretly agreed to remove Earth, then divide human trade routes and technology patents among themselves. It was simple politics dressed up as justice. 847 in favor, Vexter declared, his satisfaction evident. 1 opposed. The motion passes. Earth is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council and placed under quarantine. All trade agreements are void. All embassy staff must leave council space within 30 days. A containment field will be established around your star system to prevent unauthorized departure. The hall erupted in approval. Delegates from hundreds of worlds celebrated what they believed was a necessary action. Some genuinely feared humanity. Others simply followed the will of the powerful. A few remained silent, uncomfortable with the decision, but unwilling to stand against the majority. Jiwoo leaned close to Daiho. "They think they've won," she whispered. "Let them," Daiho replied quietly. Security drones approached the human platform, ready to escort them from the chamber. This was the ritual of expulsion, meant to humiliate and diminish. Daiho gathered his materials slowly, deliberately. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him hurry. As he stepped down from the platform, Vexter approached, unable to resist a final moment of triumph. The Saurian leader towered over the human ambassador, his presence meant to intimidate. "Your species reached too far, too fast," Vexter said. "Perhaps in 500 years you will have learned humility." Daiho met his eyes without fear. He had served in Earth's military before becoming a diplomat. He had seen things that would make Vexter's blood run cold. The Saurian might have size and strength, but he had never faced true adversity. His species had ruled through inherited power for so long that they had forgotten how to struggle. 500 years is a long time, Deho said calmly. But I don't think you'll need to wait that long. Vexter's scales rippled with amusement. You think Earth will break quarantine? Our containment technology is perfect. Nothing leaves your system without our permission. We won't need to break it, Deho replied. His voice remained level, but something in his tone made several nearby delegates pause their celebrations. You just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. We'll see you in less than 50 years, on our terms, following our rules. The Saurian's amusement faded. Is that a threat? No, Deho said. It's a promise. He walked away without waiting for a response, Jiwoo falling into step beside him. The security drones escorted them through the massive corridors toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Behind them, the assembly hall continued its celebration. Unaware that everything had just changed on as they boarded their vessel, Jiwoo finally allowed herself a small smile. Do you think they understood? Deho settled into the pilot's seat and began the departure sequence. Through the viewport, he could see the council station, a monument to power and complacency. It looked eternal, unchangeable. But Deho knew better. Everything changed. The only question was whether you adapted or died. They will, he said. Eventually. The ship launched from the station, beginning its long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the council celebrated their victory, confident that humanity had been contained. They did not know what waited in the darkness. They did not understand what humans became when pushed to the edge. They would learn. The message reached Earth 3 days after the council's decision. Every screen on the planet displayed the same transmission simultaneously. President Hyan-Soo appeared before billions of humans, his face calm despite the weight of what he was about to announce. People of Earth, he began. The Galactic Council has voted to expel humanity from galactic society. We are to be quarantined in our own star system for 500 years. They believe this will contain us. They believe this will break us. He paused, letting the words sink in. They are wrong. In living rooms, offices, and public squares around the world, people watched in silence. Some expected panic. Some anticipated anger. Instead, something else happened. Something the council had not predicted. Humanity unified. Within hours, the world government convened an emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered in Geneva, along with representatives from the lunar colonies and Mars settlements. The debate was brief and unanimous. Earth would not bow. Earth would not break. Earth would become something the galaxy had never seen before. President Hyan-Soo appointed Dr. Bogor to lead the response. She was Earth's most brilliant physicist, a woman who had spent 20 years pushing the boundaries of human understanding. She had theories that made council scientists uncomfortable. She had designs for technologies that violated galactic conventions. Until now, Earth had kept her work classified, trying to play by the council's rules. The council had just made those rules irrelevant. Dr. Bayura stood before the assembly and activated a holographic display. The room filled with complex equations and three-dimensional models that seemed impossible. For the past 15 years, she explained, I've been developing what we call quantum slip drive technology. It allows ships to move between points in space without crossing the distance between them. The Council considers such technology too dangerous because it makes their borders meaningless. She brought up another display. This is a singularity reactor. It generates power by carefully controlling micro-black holes. One reactor could power an entire city. The Council banned this research because it could be weaponized. A third display appeared, showing strange helmets connected to spacecraft controls. Neuralink combat systems. They connect directly to a pilot's brain, allowing reaction times measured in milliseconds. The council found the concept disturbing. President Hyun-soo studied the displays. How long until these technologies are operational? The prototypes already work, Dr. Baora replied. We kept them secret, hoping we wouldn't need them. We can begin full production immediately. Fleet Admiral Tae-yang spoke next. He was a veteran of Earth's exploration fleet, a man who had commanded ships on the furthest edge of human space. We need to militarize, he said bluntly. Not for conquest. For survival. The Council will enforce this quarantine with force if necessary. We need to be ready. Engineer Young Mi rose from her seat. She had designed most of Earth's orbital infrastructure, turning the space around the planet into a network of stations and habitats. I can convert our industrial capacity within 6 months, she said. Every shipyard, every factory, every fabrication facility. We'll build a fleet that makes the Council's armada look primitive. Diplomat Jae-sung added his voice to the discussion. He had spent years in Council space, building relationships with smaller species, those that the major powers ignored. The Council isn't as unified as they pretend, he said. There are hundreds of species that resent the current power structure. If I can reach them quietly, we might find allies. The plan took shape over the following weeks. Earth would not fight the quarantine directly. Instead, they would use the time to transform. The containment field the Council was building would become a shield behind which humanity evolved beyond anything the Beyond Galaxy expected. Construction began immediately. Young Mi's teams worked around the clock, converting peaceful infrastructure into a war economy. Shipyards that once built cargo vessels now produced warships equipped with Dr. Baora's revolutionary technologies. Factories that made consumer goods now manufactured weapons and armor. The moon became a fortress. Mars settlements expanded into military bases. The asteroid belt transformed into a network of automated defense platforms, each one capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously. Dr. Baora pushed her teams to the limit. The quantum slip drive entered production after 3 months of intensive testing. The first ship to use it successfully crossed from Earth to Neptune in seconds, a journey that should have taken weeks. When the test pilot emerged from the vessel, she was laughing and crying at the same time. Humans could now move through space in ways that Council had declared impossible. The singularity reactors proved more challenging. The first prototype exploded, killing 3 researchers and vaporizing a test facility. Dr. Baora attended their memorial service, then returned to work the next day. By month 6, they had perfected the containment systems. The reactors came online, providing unlimited power for Earth expansion. Admiral Tae-yang established the new fleet doctrine. Human ships would be smaller than Council vessels, but faster and more maneuverable. They would use the Neuralink systems to give pilots an edge no alien could match. They would strike hard and disappear before the enemy could respond. The first volunteers for Neuralink training stepped forward within hours of the program's announcement. Thousands of men and women willing to have technology implanted in their brains for the chance to defend humanity. The training was brutal. Many washed out. Those who succeeded became something new, something between human and machine, capable of flying spacecraft as naturally as walking. While the military prepared, Jae-sung worked in the shadows. He sent encrypted messages to contacts throughout Council space, using communication methods the Council didn't monitor. He spoke to species that had been conquered and absorbed. He reached out to civilizations that existed on the margins of galactic society. Slowly, carefully, he built a network of sympathizers who might help humanity when the time came. Year 1 passed. The Council's containment field activated, surrounding Earth's solar system with a barrier that prevented any ship from leaving. Council monitors watched for any attempt to escape. They saw none. As far as they could tell, humanity had accepted their fate. They were blind to what was happening behind that field. Year 3. Earth's population had grown to 15 billion, with 3 billion living in space habitats. The fleet had reached 5,000 ships, all equipped with technologies decades ahead of Council standard. The solar system bristled with defenses that could destroy any invasion force. Year 5. The first colony ships launched. They didn't try to break through the Council's containment field. Instead, they used the quantum slip drive to simply appear on the other side, in deep space where no Council sensors watched. The ships carried everything needed to establish independent colonies: fabrication equipment, genetic banks, cultural archives, and most importantly, the knowledge to build more ships. The Council never knew they had left. As far as official sensors showed, the quarantine remained perfect. Inside the contained solar system, humanity prepared. Outside, in the vast darkness between Council clan systems, human colonies began to grow in secret. The clock was ticking. 20 years after Earth's banishment, the Galactic Council had almost forgotten about humanity. The quarantine field around the Sol system remained active, monitored by automated stations that reported no suspicious activity. As far as the Council knew, humanity was trapped and slowly fading into irrelevance. They could not have been more wrong. Explorer Minji stood on the command deck of the colony ship, Hope's Promise, watching through the viewport as the ship emerged from quantum slip space. Before her stretched an unexplored star system with 3 habitable planets. No Council survey had ever reached this far into the galactic spiral arm. No alien civilization had claimed this territory. It was perfect. Begin the deployment, she ordered. The ship's cargo holds opened, releasing hundreds of construction drones. Within hours, they would establish the foundation of a new human settlement. Within months, a city would rise. Within years, this system would house millions of people, all living beyond the Council's knowledge or control. This was the 40th such colony Minji had helped establish. There were hundreds more scattered across unclaimed space, each one following strict protocols designed to keep them hidden. No communication with Council space. No contact with known civilizations. Complete self-sufficiency. Hidden energy signatures that made detection nearly impossible. The shadow colonies, they called themselves. A network of human civilization expanding silently through the darkness. Back on Earth, Dong Hyun worked in a facility buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. His title was Chief Intelligence Officer. But his real job was something the Council would consider impossible. He was reading their mail. The quantum entanglement communication system had been Dr. Baora's idea. It used paired particles to transmit information instantaneously across any distance. More importantly, it was completely untraceable. The Council had no idea such communication was even possible, let alone that humans had been using it to spy on them for 15 years. Dong Hyun reviewed the latest intercepts from Council space. Financial records showed unusual transactions between 3 Council members and various corporate entities. Communication logs revealed private meetings that were never officially recorded. Surveillance footage captured conversations in supposedly secure locations. The evidence was clear. Earth's banishment had been a conspiracy. 3 Council members, including Vexter's own deputy, had orchestrated the entire thing. Their goal was to seize human trade routes and technology patents, dividing the spoils among themselves once Earth was out of the way. Send this to the archive, Dong Hyun instructed his team. We'll need it later. In orbit around Jupiter, scientist Hae-won watched as her latest prototype completed its test run. The ship appeared on sensors, then vanished as if it had never existed. Not invisible, but simply gone from detectable spacetime. The cloaking system worked by bending space around the vessel, creating a bubble where light and energy passed around rather than through. Test successful. her assistant reported. No electromagnetic signature. No gravitational distortion. No thermal output. It's like the ship doesn't exist. HFY allowed herself a smile. The Council used conventional cloaking that blocked certain wavelengths of detection. Human ships could now hide from every known sensor type simultaneously. A fleet could be sitting in orbit around the Bauda Council world and no one would know until weapons started firing. Admiral Sangwoo utilized these advances to train a new generation of warriors. The neural link combat systems had evolved far beyond the original prototypes. Modern pilots didn't just control their ships, they became their ships. Their consciousness merged with the vessel systems, allowing them to react faster than thought itself. The training facility floated in the Kuiper Belt, far from prying eyes. Young men and women pushed themselves to the limit, learning to fly craft that moved in ways that violated every conventional understanding of space combat. They could change direction without slowing down. They could fire weapons while moving faster than most species could perceive. They could coordinate attacks across multiple ships as if they shared a single mind. The Council's finest pilots needed seconds to react to threats. Human pilots needed milliseconds while warriors trained and scientists innovated. Artist Su Jin worked on a different kind of preparation. In a studio on Mars, she oversaw the creation of humanity's cultural archive. Every book, every song, every piece of art, every scientific discovery, every historical record. Everything that made humanity who they were was being preserved in formats designed to last millions of years. Why are we doing this? A young assistant asked. We're not going to lose. Sujin continued her work, carefully curating digital paintings into the archive. Maybe we won't, she said quietly. But if something happens, if we're scattered or destroyed, someone should know we existed. Someone should know what we built and what we believed in. We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to ensure our story continues. The assistant thought about that, then returned to work with renewed purpose. Year 23 of the quarantine. A council patrol encountered something impossible near the frontier. Sensor readings detected a massive fleet, but when they arrived at the coordinates, nothing was there. The patrol commander filed a report about possible equipment malfunction and forgot about it. He had actually passed within 100 kilometers of 12 human warships equipped with HFY's cloaking systems. The ships had been conducting reconnaissance on Council defensive positions, mapping every sensor station and patrol route in that sector. Year 28. A minor species on the galactic rim reported strange lights in their system. Council investigators found nothing unusual, but the species insisted they had seen large vessels moving through their space. The report was dismissed as mass hysteria. In reality, Minji's colony ships had been surveying the system for possible settlement. They decided against it and moved on, leaving no trace of their presence. Year 35. Council intelligence detected encrypted communications using unknown technology. They spent years trying to trace the source or decrypt the content. They failed at both. They were detecting fragments of quantum entanglement transmissions between shadow colonies. The messages themselves were impossible to intercept or decode because they weren't traveling through normal space. Donghain read these reports with satisfaction. The council knew something was happening, but couldn't figure out what. Their confusion was perfect. It meant humanity's preparations remained hidden. Year 40. The shadow colonies now numbered 417 separate systems. The combined human population had reached 200 billion, with the majority living outside the quarantine zone. Earth's fleet had grown to 50,000 ships, most of them stationed in the hidden colonies. Humanity had transformed from a single planet species trapped in their own system to a galactic civilization, spread across hundreds of worlds. They had built an economy, a military, and a culture completely independent of council influence. and the Council still believed Earth was contained and helpless. Admiral Sang-woo reviewed the strategic situation from his command ship hidden in the dark space between galaxies. The neural link allowed him to process vast amounts of data instantaneously. He saw the positions of every human colony, every ship, every defense platform. He saw Council military deployments and trade routes. He saw weaknesses and opportunities. "We're ready," he reported to Earth Command. "Whenever the moment comes, we can strike anywhere in Council space within hours." President Hyun-soo, now in his second term, received the report in his office overlooking Geneva. Through the windows, he could see the containment field shimmering in Earth's orbit, a constant reminder of the Council's arrogance. "Maintain position," he ordered. "We don't strike first. But when the time comes, we make them understand that banishing humanity was the worst mistake they ever made." Year 45 approached. The Council remained blind. Humanity remained hidden. And in the darkness between stars, something new was about to happen. Something that would force the galaxy to see what humans had become. The waiting was almost over. The warning came during a routine Council session. A minor species on the eastern frontier reported something emerging from dark space. Ships, thousands of them, appearing without warning. They weren't using conventional faster-than-light travel. They simply materialized as if space itself was tearing open to release them. The Scorvan swarm had arrived. Within days, 3 frontier worlds went silent. Council fleets rushed to investigate and found nothing but debris. The Scorvan consumed everything: ships, stations, entire planetary populations. They were a hive mind species, billions of individual creatures acting with perfect coordination. They had no interest in communication or negotiation. They simply consumed and moved on. Vexter convened an emergency session of the Council. The assembly hall filled with panicked delegates as reports streamed in from the frontier. 7 worlds lost. 12 fleets destroyed. The Scorvan advanced deeper into Council space with each passing day. "We need to coordinate our defensive efforts," Vexter announced, trying to maintain order as chaos spread through the chamber. "All member species must contribute ships to a unified fleet." The response was overwhelming but inadequate. Council species sent their militaries, but decades of peace had left them soft. Their ships were designed for patrols and peacekeeping, not war against an enemy that numbered in the billions. Their tactics assumed rational opponents who valued their own survival. The Scorvan valued nothing except consumption. Battle after battle ended in defeat. The unified fleet slowed the Scorvan advance but couldn't stop it. Casualties mounted into the millions. Entire species faced extinction as the swarm rolled through their systems. On the 45th day of the war, with 15 worlds lost and the death toll climbing beyond calculation, Vexter made a decision he had sworn he would never make. He opened a communication channel to Earth. The quarantine field included a single, monitored communication link for emergencies. It had never been used. Now Vexter activated it, his pride swallowed by desperation. "This is Council Leader Vexter to Earth Command," he began. "The Galactic Council faces an existential threat from hostile forces. We request immediate military assistance. In exchange, we offer to reconsider your quarantine status and restore your Council membership." The response came 3 hours later. Kyung-soo, Daeho's successor as ambassador, appeared on the screen. He was younger than Vexter expected, perhaps in his 40s, with the same calm expression Daeho had worn 45 years ago. "No," Kyung-soo said simply. Vexter felt his scales ripple with disbelief. "You refuse? Your entire species is trapped in a single star system. If the Council falls, the Scorvan will eventually reach you. This is about your survival, too." "We're aware of the situation," Kyung-soo replied. And our answer remains no. We will not help you on your terms. Then what terms do you want? Vexter demanded. Name your price. Technology? Resources? Territory? Kyung-soo leaned forward slightly. We want justice. We want change. We want the galaxy to understand something fundamental. No one dictates humanity's place in this universe except humanity. Behind him, a holographic display activated, showing text in multiple languages. Vexter read it with growing alarm. The document was titled, Humanity's Rules. These are our conditions, Kyung-soo explained. First, Earth rejoins the Galactic Council not as a petitioner requesting readmission, but as a sovereign power claiming its rightful place. Second, all species receive equal representation in the Council. No more domination by old powers. Third, no member species may be expelled without unanimous consent, including their own vote. Fourth, human defensive technology will be shared with Council members, but only under human instruction and supervision. Fifth, the Three Council. Members who conspired to orchestrate Earth's banishment will face trial for their crimes. Vexter's chamber erupted in protest from other council members monitoring the transmission. These demands are impossible. Someone shouted. You're asking us to restructure our entire government. Yes, Kyung-soo agreed. That's exactly what we're asking. You can accept these terms, or you can face the Scorvin alone. You're using extortion during a crisis, Loomis observed. Her energy formed pulsing with something that might have been respect or disgust. You expelled us during peacetime for political gain, Kyung-soo countered. Which is worse? Vexter struggled to maintain composure. Even if we accept, you're quarantined. Your fleet can't reach the battle zones in time to matter. It would take months to transport sufficient forces. You might want to check your eastern frontier. Kyung-soo suggested. The Council's military command center activated tactical displays. What they showed made no sense. According to sensors, human fleet signatures had appeared throughout the battle zone. Not just a few ships, but thousands. They were already engaging the Scorvin and winning. Vexter stared at the displays. How? Your quarantine field is intact. Nothing has left your system. Nothing went through the field, Kyung-soo confirmed. We went around it. 40 years ago, actually. The implication crashed over the Council like a wave. Humanity hadn't been contained. They had used the quarantine as cover while expanding throughout unclaimed space. The entire galactic map suddenly felt uncertain. How many ships do you have out there? Vexter asked quietly. Enough, Kyung-soo replied. More than enough to turn the tide against the Scorvin. But only if you accept our terms. Another council member spoke up. What if we refuse? What if we take our chances against the Scorvin? Then we withdraw our forces and watch, Kyung-soo said flatly. The Scorvin will eventually consume council space. When they reach our territories, we'll deal with them ourselves. Without your interference. The silence stretched for long moments. Vexter looked around the chamber at delegates from hundreds of species. He saw fear, anger, and reluctant acceptance. They were trapped, and they knew it. I need to consult with the full council, Vexter said finally. You have 1 hour, Kyung-soo replied. After that, our forces begin withdrawing from combat zones. The screen went dark. The next hour was the longest of Vexter's life. The council debated frantically. Some members wanted to refuse on principle. Others pointed out that principle wouldn't matter if they were all dead. A few quietly admitted that humanity's terms weren't unreasonable. They were just humiliating for those who had wielded power for so long. Operative One-Shik, a human intelligence officer, appeared on council channels without being invited. He broadcast footage that made several delegates physically ill. It showed the 3 council members who had orchestrated Earth's banishment meeting in secret, discussing how to divide human assets. It showed bribes and blackmail. It showed a conspiracy that had corrupted the council's highest levels. "Where did you get this?" someone demanded. "We've been watching you for 20 years, one chick replied. "We know everything." The vote was called. This time, it wasn't about expelling Earth. It was about survival. 846 votes in favor of accepting humanity's terms. 2 opposed, from species too proud to admit they had been wrong. Vexter sent the response to Earth. "We accept your conditions." "Good," Kyung-soo said. "Our forces will continue combat operations. We'll discuss the details of reorganizing the council after the Scorvan threat is eliminated." "Oh, and Vexter?" "Yes?" "Welcome to the new galaxy. We're all equals now." The transmission ended. Throughout council space, human ships already in position received new orders. They stopped withdrawing and committed fully to the battle. The tide of war began to turn. In the assembly hall, Vextor sat heavily in his seat. 45 years ago, he had celebrated humanity's expulsion. Now they had returned, not as petitioners, but as conquerors who didn't need to fire a shot at the council to win. Everything had changed. The war against the Scorvan ended in 3 months. What had seemed impossible became routine as human forces coordinated with council fleets. The Neuralink pilots flew circles around enemy formations. The quantum slip drive allowed reinforcements to appear exactly where needed within minutes. The singularity reactors powered weapons that could vaporize entire swarm clusters with single shots. But it wasn't just technology that won the war. It was tactics. Humans had spent 45 years studying council combat doctrine and its weaknesses. They knew how to fight enemies who relied on overwhelming numbers. They had trained for this. The final battle took place at the Scorvan staging area in dark space. Admiral Sang-woo led the assault personally. His consciousness merged with his flagship. Around him, 50,000 human ships moved in perfect coordination, supported by 200,000 council vessels that followed human commands without question. The Scorvan had numbers. Humans had speed, precision, and technology the swarm couldn't adapt to quickly enough. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Scorvan threat had been eliminated and the galaxy was safe. For now. 2 weeks after the war's end, the Galactic Council convened for the most important session in its 1,000-year history. The assembly hall looked the same as always, but everything else had changed. Representatives from 848 civilizations gathered. But this time, humanity wasn't standing alone at a defendant's platform. General Ji-hoon appeared on the main display, broadcasting from a human command ship. Behind him, a tactical map showed the galaxy in detail. Red markers indicated the shadow colonies that humanity had established over 45 years. There were 417 of them, scattered across previously unclaimed space. "This is what you tried to contain," Ji-hoon explained, his voice calm but firm. "While you celebrated our banishment, we expanded. While you forgot about us, we grew stronger. You tried to write us out of galactic history. Instead, we rewrote the map." He highlighted specific systems. "These colonies are fully self-sufficient. They have their own industries, their own defenses, their own governments. We don't need the council. We never did. We're here because we choose to be, not because we have to be." Another display activated, showing technological specifications. These are the systems that won the war. Quantum slip drives that make your borders meaningless. Cloaking technology that renders your sensors useless. Weapons powered by controlled singularities. Neuralink combat systems that give our pilots abilities you can't match. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some species looked frightened. Others seemed impressed. A few appeared angry, but they kept silent. "We're willing to share all of this," Ji-hoon continued, "under our conditions. Human instructors will teach your scientists and engineers. Human officers will train your military forces. But you'll do it our way, following our protocols, because we're the ones who made it work." Vexter stood from his seat. The Saurian leader looked older than he had 2 months ago. The war had cost him his deputy, who was currently awaiting trial for conspiracy. It had also cost him his certainty that the old ways were best. "The Council recognizes humanity's terms," he said formally. "We agree to restructure the Council to ensure equal representation for all member species. We agree that no species may be expelled without unanimous consent. We agree to the technology sharing program under human supervision." "And the trials?" Kyung-soo asked from his position at the newly established human platform. "The 3 accused council members will face justice," Vexter confirmed. "The evidence is clear. They will be punished." The trials took place over the following month. Dong-Hein presented decades of surveillance data that proved the conspiracy. The accused council members tried to claim they had acted in the galaxy's best interests, that humanity was dangerous and needed to be contained. "We were dangerous," Kyung-soo agreed during his testimony, "but not in the way you thought. We were dangerous because we refused to accept limits others tried to impose on us. We were dangerous because we innovated instead of stagnated. We were dangerous because we represented change in a galaxy that preferred everything to stay the same." The verdict was unanimous across all charges. The conspirators were removed from power and exiled to remote worlds where they could do no more harm. It was a mercy. Many species had wanted harsher punishment. The real work began after the trials ended. Chancellor Seo-jun, Earth's first representative on the reformed Council's supreme authority, started the massive task of reorganizing galactic government. The old system where a few powerful species dominated was dismantled. Every member world received equal voice in council decisions. It was messy. It was slow. It was democracy on a galactic scale, and it frustrated everyone used to the old autocratic efficiency. But it worked. Dr. Ba'ura launched the Cultural Exchange Initiative. Human scientists traveled to alien worlds, teaching and learning. The quantum slip drive technology was shared first, with human engineers supervising its implementation. Species that had been weeks apart could now reach each other in hours. The cloaking technology came next, but with strict limitations. Human oversight ensured it wasn't used for military aggression. The singularity reactors were shared last, only after Dr. Ba'ura was satisfied that each species could operate them safely. In exchange, humans learned from alien knowledge that complemented their own. Medical techniques that could extend human lifespans. Art forms that expanded human understanding of beauty. Philosophical traditions that offered new ways of thinking about existence. Admiral Sang-woo established the first joint military academy. Students from hundreds of species trained together, learning human combat doctrines while teaching their own cultural approaches to warfare. The neural link systems remained exclusive to humans, but other species developed their own innovations that proved equally effective. 5 years after Earth's return, young pilot Dae-yoon graduated from the academy as part of the first mixed species class. She was human, but her wingmates included a Saurian tactical officer, an Aquarian engineer, and a Silicon Concordat navigator. They had trained together, fought simulations together, and become something new, a unified force that combined the best of all their species. "What's it like?" a reporter asked Dae-yoon during her graduation ceremony. "Being part of this new galaxy?" Dae-yoon considered the question carefully. "It's better," she said finally. "Not perfect. There's still tension between species. Some still resent humans for forcing change. But it's better than what we had before. At least now everyone has a voice." The Galactic Unity Station opened in orbit around Earth, replacing the old council headquarters. It was designed by human architects working with alien engineers, a massive structure that incorporated aesthetic elements from hundreds of cultures. Delegates from across the galaxy came here to debate policy, share knowledge, and build something that had never existed before, a truly united galactic community. On Lua, retired Ambassador Daiho watched the station's dedication ceremony from his estate. He was 97 years old now, but his mind remained sharp. Through the viewport, he could see ships from 100 worlds arriving at the station. His grandson sat beside him, a young man who had been born during the quarantine and grown up during the expansion. "Was it worth it?" the young man asked. "Everything you went through?" Daiho thought back to that day in the council chamber, 50 years ago, when he had promised Vexter they would return. He remembered the certainty he had felt, even when facing overwhelming opposition. He remembered believing that humanity could become something greater if pushed to the edge. "Yes," he said. "It was worth it." "What made the difference?" his grandson asked. "Between us and the council? Why did we succeed when they tried to contain us?" "They made a mistake," Daiho explained. "They thought power came from controlling others. They thought stability meant preventing change. They forgot that the galaxy doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to everyone willing to reach for it." Through the viewport, another ship arrived at the station. Human ships traveled alongside alien vessels, all of them equals now. "We didn't conquer the galaxy," Daiho continued. "We didn't defeat the council. We just showed them a better way. Sometimes, that's the most powerful weapon of all. The simple idea that things don't have to be the way they've always been." His grandson considered that. "So what happens now?" "Now?" Daiho smiled. "Now we keep building. Keep exploring. Keep growing. The Scorven were just one thread. There will be others. But we'll face them together, as equals, following principles that respect everyone's dignity and rights." "Humanity's rules," his grandson said. "No," Daiho corrected gently. "Everyone's rules. That's the point. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure no one else rules us." Night fell over Luna. Earth hung in the black sky, a blue and white sphere that had once been isolated and alone. Now it stood at the center of something larger, a civilization that stretched across hundreds of worlds. Built on principles of equality and mutual respect, thought the galaxy had tried to erase humanity from its story. Instead, humanity had given the galaxy a new story to tell. Not one of conquest or domination, but of transformation and hope. In the darkness between stars, more human colony ships prepared to launch.